Seahawks.com, Tony Ventrella, Jordan Babineau. It's Tuesday, although it's Competition Wednesday. How will we confuse people with that one, or what? We'll explain
Slightly. I think the Seahawks know exactly what that means.
We'll explain it in just a minute. This is day 10 of Seahawks Training Camp, and the weather continues to be consistently beautiful. A little bit warm today. It's going to be in the high 80s, but not during this training camp day, which starts at 10:15 and goes to 12 noon. Now, this is game week, Babs, as you know. Things change up a little bit. It's preseason game week, but it doesn't matter. They treat everything the same. And as you get to Competition Wednesday on a regular game week, just tell them what this means. There's competition every day, but there's something about Wednesday that pushes it into that game week.
Yeah, usually when we're in the flow of things during the regular season, Tuesday is normally the day off. Guys tend to do things, surrounding their body, come in, get an extra lift, maybe a little massage therapy and that sort of thing. And then Wednesday is the first day of practice for the week. Now, usually coaches really like to see a high-tempo, high-powered, fast practice, but because it sets the tempo for the rest of the week. Now, I do think, though, although this is the first preseason game, they may be doing a slight bit of installation, getting familiar with this Broncos offense and defense and some of the things that they like to do from a game plan standpoint. Now, one of the things to keep in mind is they do have a new head coach. Gary Kubiak's taking over there as the new head coach, and some things may change quite a bit with Peyton Manning and how they're used to operating as an offense.
Well, that's true, and Peyton Manning is Peyton Manning. He's not going to change that much, but you're right. The offense made demand, because of Coach Kubiak, made demand some changes. Wade Phillips is the defensive coach, the 3-4 defense that Denver employs, and the Seahawks will work against that. But as you know, the way this team is, the philosophy of this team and Coach Carroll is that they work on what they do. Obviously, you need to be aware of what your opponent's doing, but you don't focus on it, especially in the preseason, as much as you focus on what you do.
Right, and I think that's more important because there's so many young guys who'd be experiencing a lot of playing time in the first preseason game. I'd imagine that the starters may go a quarter, 20 plays somewhat, and get familiar with the speed of the game and change of possessions and that sort of thing. But it's really the young guys, Tony. And the one thing that you can do as a coach that you can do for your young players, for them to continue to play fast, is make sure that they understand the game plan. Keep it simple, and let them play fast.
All right, I think that's great advice. Got to make sure my mic was on there, Babs, because I think maybe my voice is just getting softer. People couldn't hear me here. But anyway, let's walk over to the monitors here.
The deeper you get into this game.
I want to give out a big welcome today to the U.S. military. 100 members of our military are here thanks to USAA Insurance, which of course is the insurance that covers all of the military. And the cool thing about it is I'm allowed to do a commercial because of the fact that USAA is the company that if you are a member of the military and you are signed up with USAA, the rest of your family, kids, grandkids, can also sign up with USAA as long as one of you is a military member. So thanks to USAA, a longtime Seahawk partner, for bringing 100 members of the military out here to practice today. And as you know, Babs, the appreciation for the military by the NFL, by the Seahawks, goes on and on and on. Throughout the world, they support us, they protect us, and we support them.
Yeah, I think it's great to always continue to see men and women in uniform. I know the NFL recognizes military through the month of November with the Salute to Service campaign that they usually provide in honor of the many things that the men and women have done for us protecting our country. Now, each team individually has done the same thing, reaching out to local men and women of the armed forces and inviting them out to practice and get an up-close and personal look with some of the guys. In fact, the Atlanta Falcons, after speaking to my brother earlier this week, they've already had invited the military out to their practice. So this is something that you'll continue to see throughout the NFL, a great partnership with the Seahawks as well, but the NFL certainly recognizes troops and men and women in uniform.
But of course, the Seahawks have a direct connection to the military. Nate Boyer, who is one of the guys in the long snapper position in this OTAs in the offseason and now here for training camp. Nate Boyer with multiple trips, I was going to say, to Afghanistan. Not exactly a trip, a vacation, but deployments to Afghanistan and the Middle East when he was in the military. And this is a Special Forces guy trying out for a spot on the Seattle Seahawks, Nate Boyer. So it's fitting that we show a shot of him on this USAA Military Day at training camp. And also throughout the day, we'll try to get our cameras on some of the troops who are here today for this day. Also here today, Babs, is Coach's older brother. Is here. There's Coach right there, but his older brother, I believe it's Jim, is here today as well. Coach has two sons on the team.
You think he's going to put him in a headlock like old days for old time's sake?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure they were very competitive as kids.
Yeah, you know the brother battles, they never end, right?
No, they don't. They definitely do not. And so there you go, Coach getting his guys ready, and it's going to be a day. He did mention earlier in the team meeting this morning about the change of command, and you did too, of the Denver Broncos with Gary Kubiak coming in, getting hired by John Elway to come and run that team. Let's face it, they got so close 2 years ago, and it wasn't that close. It was a blowout, but they got to the Super Bowl. And you don't know how many more years Peyton Manning has left, and John Elway would like to get this thing done. So they are very, very serious.
Yeah, you can certainly bet that Elway recognizes that the window of opportunity, not only for Peyton Manning, but for this franchise to win, and their best opportunity to win is right now, and it has to be this season. They've made a few additions on the defensive side of the ball. They've continued to add players and even coaches on the staff as well. As we say that the new head coach is Gary Kubiak, and he brought in his staff. But certainly it'll be a different Denver Broncos defense and team. We'll take a look to see what those adjustments will look like come Friday.
Some of your U.S. Coast Guard personnel right there, some Coast Guard guys. There's Blitz off to the side, the U.S. Coast Guard 13th District. Let me see, who else is here today? You have Naval Base Kitsap Bangor, the Coast Guard, Joint Base Lewis McCord, of course, military here. There's a U.S. Army troop right there, known by the uniform, obviously. And there you are. Hey, I wanted to mention Taylor standing by for your tweets. We want your questions today.
Yes, send those Twitter questions in.
Our goal, by the way, is 5. Let's go even more than 5 if we could. We want your Twitter questions for Big Play Babs. It's hashtag Seahawks Camp. Get your questions in. Doesn't matter whether it's about the offense, the defense, the coaching. Ask Babs how he thinks the Seahawks are going to do this year. It's okay.
Or even the draft picks. Maybe a look at how Tyler Lockett's going to fit into the offensive game plan. How they're going to do certain things to get him the ball. Any questions? Send them in.
We are ready.
I'm sure we can handle it, right, Tony?
Yeah, well, absolutely. There's no question. We want to put some pressure on Babs today, a little bit of pressure. I wouldn't mind a question that might even stump him, although I don't think that's possible.
Yeah, really probably if you're asking me who was the 1978 punter that kicked in the Kingdom, I couldn't. I'd have to go to the sources on that.
I have to go to. I can't even think of that one.
Who was the starting punter of the 1978 roster? That's a good one. Now I'm stumped. Now you got me.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I used to know who the first ever Seahawk draft pick was. I think it was his last name was Niehaus, I believe, and I can't remember his first name, but I think I'm right on that one. Not to be mistaken for the late great Dave Niehaus of the Seattle Mariners. This is different. It was a draft pick in '76 named Niehaus. If I'm wrong, hashtag Seahawks Camp, or if I'm right.
Yeah, tell them.
Either way, we want to hear from you today. And by the way, I didn't mention Danita. Danita's up in the, what would you say, the control booth. Danita is basically monitoring this live webcast today. Taylor is here with us. Justin is on one of our cameras. Brian Pan working today as well, pretty much running this whole operation. But I didn't mention Danita the other day. I told her I'd make up a song about her, Babs, so maybe I will later on. We'll see how that works.
You need to warm up the vocal cords quite a bit, huh? And get you some warm green tea or something, Tony. Don't make us actually have to listen to that.
That's a good point. There's a wide shot of the back of VMAC right there on a beautiful sun-bathed day as we get ready for competition Wednesday on a Tuesday.
Right now is special teams practice, taking a look at Coach Carroll as he's always walks around jacked up. The music is blasting, and one of the things that he really likes to do is challenge you by throwing the football. He does it every day. And at some point during practice, you'll see him try to throw a football 35 yards into a trash can. Now that's the big challenge.
They do have that competition. I've seen it, and the coaches get involved. It used to be the quarterbacks did that back in the day. And there is the trash can.
Right, it was the old fade ball. You drop the trash can in the back pylon of the end zone, and the quarterbacks would take snaps from the 5 or 10 yard line and try to drop them in the bread basket. Right, I remember doing that quite a bit.
Sure, I mean that's a tough one too. I would say don't try it at home, but you might as well try it at home. It's not that dangerous.
Yes, especially all you young quarterbacks that are out there playing Pop Warner football. And
there's your QBs right there. You got 3 of them in camp. Obviously, Russell Wilson, your starter, T-Jack, your backup, B.J. Archer, who has been very, very useful quarterback here in the pre-camp OTAs. He was the only quarterback for a while. Well, he and Russell, of course.
In fact, he just had a birthday last week, Tony.
All right, R.J. Archer. R.J.'s doing a good job.
Turning 25.
He's since he's been there. T-Jack is the backup. You wonder about a third quarterback and where he might be when the camp is over. Every day is an opportunity, and that's the way he has to look at it, perhaps.
Well, I think especially for a young guy as he is, being able to take command and some of the things in Russell Wilson's had success with and learning the offense and what you can get away with as a young quarterback in this league, you have to stack those together. And when you start to put those in a memory bank, it certainly creates less of a chance for you to turn the ball over. And of course, this ball club only talks about one thing, that it's all about the football, protecting the football, and the offense that's turning the ball over quite a bit, especially for a young quarterback, won't lead to much playing time in the NFL.
Well, no, that's right. They do watch that rather closely. Russell Wilson warming up a little bit. There's been so much talk of Russell and the tight ends. There's Anthony McCoy grabbing that ball right now on the catching end. There's Jimmy Graham a little off camera on the right. As well, and there's been talk of Russell and Jimmy Graham and the work that they do after practice. If there's a misstep, and there's always going to be a misstep during training camp, then they will work on that 4, 5, 10 reps sometimes post-practice, and that's how you get the rapport with that quarterback going, and with that tight end or receiver, whoever it is.
I think when you talk about the off-season, everything that they've done over the 3 months building up to this point, leading into training camp, and now being able to put in the extra time after practice, that's where you'll see the hard work start to pay off on game days. That this extra time that they spend after practice, understanding one another, making sure and ensuring that they're seeing the defense the same way and they have the same reads. Of course, Tony, it could only lead to positive things if you're on the same page with your quarterback.
And that is what it's all about with Russell. He's always been that way since day one. He's always done the work, left notes in teammates' lockers. Heck, he did that his first season. They wondered, who is this guy leaving notes in our locker? What is he doing here?
I couldn't imagine that, Tony, coming back and my teammate telling me I have to work on my back pedal. I mean, that would be well, let's just go in and watch some film and make sure that we're on the same page. But that also is a credit to the leadership that just lives in him. I mean, I'm sure he wasn't instructed to do that, but he felt the need and a demand to ensure that in order for the offense to have the best success, we all have to be operating on the same cylinder.
That is so true. There's Robert Turbin on your screen. Robert had a nice day. Cliff Averill, of course, his entire jersey covering your screen. Marshawn Lynch. But to go back to Turbo, who changed his number from 22 to 32. He had a very impressive mock game, Babs, on Saturday. And, this, I always say this, but this, to me, has got to be a breakout season for Turbo. He's always been very steady. In fact, when Marshawn went down with some back cramps a couple years back, even last year, Turbo always seems to be there. But at some point, it's human nature. You want to be that guy. I don't know if he ever will as long as Marshawn is here, but he certainly is capable of being, I think.
I'll tell you what, I would imagine that the front office is probably looking for the same thing that we're talking about. Because think about this every year when you're dealing with Marshawn Lynch, and he's a great player, but Marshawn still has a lot of uncertainty about his future and what he wants to do. They went through an issue a few years ago about when Beast Mode decided to hold out, demanding extra money in his contract. So now, nearing the end of his contract, what is Beast Mode going to do next offseason? So that's something that the team has to prepare for. And if Turbo's the guy who's ready to step in, I'm sure they'd be willing to hand the ball off to him if he proves himself. But trust me, you and I both know that Pete and John are still looking for another competitor to come in and compete and push that final spot, if that's something that they're looking forward in the future.
Well, they really do. And then the other thing, there was an article in the paper the other day, and people don't all think this way, but the general way of thinking, which by the way I don't necessarily agree with, the general way of thinking is that a running back, once he hits 29 or 30, the skills begin to fray a little bit. Now that's been the case in a lot of different cases, which is why they go with that theory. But, Sherm Smith, who's the running back coach, says, hey, a lot of it's in your mind, and that's correct. It is true. But lots in your body as well. Your mind does control your body, and Marshawn comes to work in great shape every year. So he may defy the odds and go an extra year or two, but the team has to make a business decision at that point. Do we go with this or not? And there you go. So you're back up to get back to Turbo, having a good preseason. Kristen Michael is another one who they really want to see what he can do this year. This is his third season. He's got explosive speed. Also, Rawls in there has had a good spring so far, Thomas Rawls. So we'll see and those guys are going to get a lot of work in that preseason game on Friday night.
I'm telling you, I never forget my first preseason game, Tony. We were in Green Bay, and I was a free agent coming in, which meant I always had to prove myself, but that's exactly what the preseason for. Yeah, it may not count on your record, but it certainly matters, and especially to these young guys who are fighting for roster spots, fighting to prove that they're worth and their value here in the NFL, and more importantly, this is an on-tape audition. If there's no room here on the Seahawks roster, there's 31 other teams that guys, need to put good tape and good film out to be able to have a chance to sustain a roster spot regardless of where that is.
That is so true. Tony Ventrella, Jordan Babineau, live, Seahawks.com. Don't forget hashtag Seahawks Camp. Get your questions in to Taylor. She will get your questions to Babs later on, about halfway through our live webcast. Also, welcome Military Day at Training Camp, sponsored by USAA, the insurance company that takes care of the military right down the line. If you're a member of the military, your relatives can also sign up for USA Insurance, and they have great services in not just for
Tony,
insurance.
there they are.
But, yeah.
The balls are flying into the trash can.
Yes, they are. All right. We're going to see that in a second. We'll get to there's that shot. The quarterback, not the quarterbacks, in this case, the coaches.
That's the coaches, right? All the coaches are having a throwing contest.
Let's see if one lands, and then we'll figure out who's throwing. There we go. Getting a wide shot. It's a one-camera shot, so it's a bit of a test. Pat Rule loves to get involved. There's Coach Pat. He's the assistant to Tom Cable with the O-line. Pat McPherson right next to him, the tight ends coach. He lets one fly.
I think Tatupu's winding up. Darrell Bevell is winding up to throw one and let one go. I'm telling you, it does not stop around here. Everything's a competition.
Darrell Bevell should have the edge. He was a quarterback. It doesn't seem like it's fair. Dave Canales, who's the receivers coach, I believe he played some quarterback in college. Dave Canales looking like Tom Hanks in the movie about the guy that gets lost on the island. Remember that? The coconut face. I don't remember.
Castaway. Castaway. That's what it was. He and his best friend Rollins.
He had Wilson.
Wilson. That's what Wilson.
Yeah. That was long before Russell Wilson too. Anyway.
Any questions coming through yet? I don't see any questions. Hashtag Seahawks Camp and load those questions up. Anything you want to know about the team this year, what to expect, or just the player in general, feel free to tweet those questions. Hashtag Seahawks Camp at Jordan Babineau. Tony, one of the things too, I know we have the military guys here, men and women of service here, but we also, as the team has continued to do, is the guys in pinstripe. And I think that's always important to have the referees here, because now it gives you a chance to see what you can get away with. And although many times the refs come in, they're usually from the college level who's actually working to get to the NFL, or either working to gain some experience with the crew that they work with throughout the year, but, you know, especially for the defensive backs, how can I push the limit? What can I get away with? What is it that the referee is actually looking for? And if he does throw a flag, then now I know how to better correct it and play a better technique.
And that's really the way it's been here. Yeah, it's what you can get away with. It's also what you can't get away with, and they're learning that. There's you know, the cut block, the time. If you roll on a guy on the back of his leg, you're going to get called. You go first with a helmet, or you go toward the helmet on a quarterback. There's so many other things that come into play, and that's why the officials are here. Coach Carroll approaches it by saying, look, these are the rules. Let's go by the rules. Let's not get penalized, and let's learn how to do it and how to do it right, and that's why the officials are here. There you see right in the background there, behind the official, Tom Cable talking to Lem Jean-Pierre, who is very much in this competition with Drew Nowak for starting center. And they're neck and neck at this point. I think Drew has got just a slight edge on the physical side. Lem Jean-Pierre a slight edge on the knowledge of what to do, because he's had more experience. So we'll see how that one goes. It's always great to have a couple guys at least in competition for center. Once again, hashtag Seahawks Camp, and we want your questions. We want at least 5 questions today, so Taylor can pass them along to Big Play Babs at the end of our half hour. We do love hearing from you. People watching from work today. Not sure how smart that is, but what the heck, why not if you can get away with it for a few minutes. We welcome wherever you're watching. And if you're out here, and you are, there's 3,200 of you here today. Beautiful sunbathed August morning on day number 10 of training camp. And you know the way it is, Babs, training camp itself actually breaks on the 19th of August. And then, of course, you come back with the exact same schedule the next day. So nothing really changes except the audience. The crowd won't be here.
Yeah, I think, you know, players start to get excited as you look toward the calendar and see that day that you break camp. It always feels like Groundhog Day around here until you're able to strap up and put the uniform on for the first time in the preseason game. And then usually after that, things taper down quite a bit, especially from the install standpoint. Now, in the meeting rooms, classroom, it's probably more corrective and visual than it is installation and learning and that sort of thing. By then, the game plan should be in. But more importantly, like I said, and I'll continue to say, the preseason is a great opportunity for guys to showcase their skills, especially those who weren't high draft picks and looking to make a name for themselves and create a roster spot here in Seattle.
That is what it's all about, as the coaches go through and monitor and discuss and talk during team stretch. This practice started a little bit late today. Started at 10:15, goes to 12 noon. And as Babs mentioned earlier, there'll be a little bit of install going on for that preseason game. But mostly it's all about getting guys opportunities, and so many of them will have a chance to show what they can do. I remember it seems to me the opener in last preseason, the number 1 offense maybe was out there for a series, maybe 2, and that's about it, really.
Well, if there's good production, you know, Russell drops back and goes 3 for 4, puts together a nice drive, and they actually score and come out, you know, with a successful drive. You know, that's a good sign. That is a good sign. If I'm an offensive coordinator, if I'm the head coach, and my offense comes up in the first drive, they're able to go out and put up points. I'm okay with that, for that being the first day of real work and being the first preseason game.
All right, hey, somebody watching from Texas.
Texas, that's my home state right there, Tony. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
Oh, of course you did.
I did. No, I did know that, yes. I know everything about every player. There you go. Here you go. Somebody checking in saying he had back surgery. And is just sitting around having a cup of coffee this morning. All right, way to go. That's good. Hey, we want your questions, though. We'd love to hear from you. Hashtag Seahawks Camp. Get your questions in, and we will pass them along to Big Play Babs here on Military Day, sponsored by USAA. Welcome to day 10 of Seahawks Training Camp. Tony Ventrella, Jordan Babineau, music in the background, offense in blue, defense in white, as we get set for another day out here at training camp. And I see Mike Flood, who's our VP of Community Outreach and Relations. Mike Flood, of course, a veteran of the U.S. Coast Guard, talking with some of the Coast Guard members. We'll get some shots of those we did have before. We'll get some later on for you as well. Special team stuff happening here. And by the way, speaking of special teams, on tomorrow's Seahawks Daily, we're going to talk about that with the kickers and the punter. What's different? Extra points are different this year. You kick them from farther back. What do you think of that, Babs? Any difference? Do you care much?
Yeah, here's the, I guess with every end of every season, you go back and you kind of analyze the rules committee of the NFL, that is, kind of analyze all the things that happened, may have had problems, creating referees problems, the percentages of calls and what was called the most. They go back and they take a look at that summary for the league and they try to figure out how do we make the game better? How do we continue to protect the players? Well, Tony, there's been a few rules changes that has taken place this season that you're going to see throughout the preseason. Is going to be quite different. And of course, one would be moving the extra point back and almost making it a 35, 33-yard field goal. Now that does two things for the kicker. More importantly, as many times as we think an extra point is automatic, it puts a little extra thought into and execution into it. Now from a defensive standpoint, the offense is protected because you can no longer double push your defensive lineman into the offensive lineman, creating an extra surge to get that block. So you can see some of the rule changes committees. The rule changes committee is still monitoring what you can do, what's safe for the players, as well as outside the tackle box. You can no longer peel back and crack back. So defensive players are protected as well. And it's good to see that not only offensive players are considered defenseless players, the defensive players can be considered defenseless players as well.
Sure. No, I think that's a great explanation. We're going to be talking a little bit more about that tomorrow from the standpoint of the kicker, of Stephen Auschka. He's got a pretty solid record of kicking extra points and almost as perfect kicking field goals. So we'll see how that works out when we talk to him and John Ryan and the holders a little bit tomorrow. Today we're on the Daily. We'll focus on the offensive line with two of the guys that are outstanding so far. One is Justin Britt on that right side. He's just done such a great job out there.
Yeah, Justin Britt, the only rookie offensive lineman last year to start all 16 games, did a great job. Of course, the offensive line, though, Tony, coming into training camp, to me, would probably seem like the biggest question. Of course, Russell Wilson was sacked quite a bit, but there's also some injuries that happened. Max Unger is now a New Orleans Saint. And another offensive starter went to the Jets. So there'll be two new guys stepping in at the guard and the center position. So we'll see. Have to continue to monitor the offensive line and how they protect Russell Wilson. But one of the best at running the football, we know that. But the passing game on the offensive side of the ball, I think, has been the biggest question mark about this offense over the last 3 years. But it's worked. It's worked. And it all starts, to me, in my opinion, with 24.
Yes, it does. With Marshawn Lynch, we were just talking about him. He's in great shape. He's back. There's Tom Cable, Pat Rule, Brandon Carroll working with the offensive line. We're going to talk with Justin Britt and Alvin Bailey during the later on in the day on Seahawks.com on the Daily. Right now you see them right in front of you. Justin Britt, number 68 in the second season, getting that start on the right side, opposite now veteran Russell Okung. I'm going to check in with Taylor. You don't have to talk out loud. Just give me a hand signal. Do we have any? We have 5? We have 3. Okay, that's not bad. We're shooting for 5 questions. We got 3. I'm going to hand my mic over to Taylor here. She and Babs in a minute are going to go out and do the Q&A.
I love it, Tony.
Yeah,
I love
Military Day here at Training Camp, sponsored by USAA. What is that? What is the DJ's doing a great job? You recognize what that is?
Yeah, the DJ playing some good music. I'm over here dancing. I can't stop dancing.
No, that's good. You got a smile on your face and spring in your step.
Tony, good music make you want to dance, man. It's just something about it. Special teams practice is still taking place. The defensive linemen have made their way over to the field, now working on their get-offs and some of their pass rush moves and hand-to-hand combat. But the specialists, as you see Coach Snyder guiding the special teams unit, they're working on their takeoff. Now this here just looks well because it's all about timing. You can't be too offsides, but you can't be offside, period. But you also want to make sure that you're close enough to the line of scrimmage when the kicker approaches the ball that you're able to cover at max speed. And Tony, there's usually a reward. Like, there's competition, so much competition in this organization that the kickoff team has competition for tackles inside the 20-yard line. I think they put like a little dollar in the pot or something friendly, you know, who knows. But competition around here exists. It's what drives and motivates the team, and it's the reason why they've had so much success over the last few years.
You bet, absolutely. It's hey, they compete from the first minute of the team meeting in the morning. Can't give away too many secrets about that team meeting, but let me just tell you, it's competitive all the way down the line, no matter who's in that room at the time. A little bit of an overcast morning, which keeps it cooler. The crowd on that berm is absolutely packed. Maybe the biggest crowd for a weekday that we've had on day number 10. These tickets went so fast for training camp this year. People just swept them up in about 30 minutes. It's just a great place to be. Jordan Hill right there. We talked with Jordan the other day. Looking great in this camp. Bounced back nicely. Jimmy Staten right next to him. Greg Scruggs, another guy who is on a comeback year this year. And then, of course, Jesse Williams, the big story off to the left of your screen. I love talking to Jesse every morning before the team meeting. He's such an intelligent guy. I love it, and I like his voice too, that Australian accent.
Something about those foreigners when they come over and start speaking the English dialect is so different. You can pick it up right away.
You can, absolutely. I'm telling you, man. Hey, thanks for your questions, but keep them rolling. Keep them rolling, because twice in the hour we're going to take your questions. Taylor will be on with you in a minute, along with Jordan Babineau. Big Play Babs answering your questions.
Someone's checking in from Houston. All right.
Yeah.
Side of 206. Someone's watching down there in the Bayou City.
Got some Houston. I got another one from Pennsylvania today. The Quaker State. Are you from Houston? What's your city in?
I'm from Port Arthur, Tony, which is 90 miles east of Houston. So Houston's the biggest city closest to my hometown.
So your high school football games, did you get 20,000?
I did.
Did you
when we
really?
played against our rival in high school, Tony, it was 19,000 people there. Now, I played in front of more people at my high school games that I did at Southern Arkansas University.
Really?
Yeah, well, that's another story. But that's Texas football.
Yes, it is. All right, hey, there you got Will Tukawapu. What am I talking about? Will Tukawapu, who's also one of my favorites on the team. I love talking to that guy. Will came in last year mid-season to fill in when Derek Coleman got hurt, and Will is back and grateful to be here, fighting for that fullback spot, standing next to Bruce Irvin. KJ Wright.
Bruce Irvin, your first-round draft pick from 2012, now in a contract year. I'm expecting some big things from Bruce, and I'm sure he is of himself as well.
Oh, yeah. There is no doubt about that. He is so determined. He's determined every year to get better.
I'm telling you, speed guy coming off the edge. He himself, Cliff Averill, Michael Bennett, those guys are a NASCAR package by themselves.
Okay, your questions, we should give a prize, but we're not going to at this point, unless they're really good questions, then we might think of something.
All right, here we go. Competition Tuesday. What's really called Competition Wednesday, but there's the offense right there. It's the start of practice, the start of every practice, to heighten the tempo and get things going, get the blood going just a little bit. We have the bag drills, Tony. Now, the players really look forward to the bag drills, Tony. I'm telling you. Not so much. I'm just joking.
No, I'll tell you what, Babs. Everyone should have bags in their backyard.
I agree.
Everyone should be doing that drill. You talk about, we're a nation that's a little overweight. I mean, I don't want to get into that too much.
Yeah, obesity is a topic on its own, Tony. We don't have enough time to cover that.
No, we don't have enough, but we could get that bag drill going in everybody's backyard, and there you go. All right, off to the questions, Taylor and Babs.
All right.
We've got some questions today, Bab. Are you ready?
You know what? I'll do my best, but yes, I am ready. 12s, keep them rolling. Hashtag Seahawks Camp, right?
Right, that's what they got to
It's not too late. It's not too late.
No, well, the 12s are wondering what kind of impact is Frank Clark going to have going up behind Cliff Averill and Michael Bennett?
Oh, great question right there. You know, Frank Clark, the second round draft pick here of this year, I think will provide the depth that the Seahawks really have built this team around. He may not be the initial starter, but I think there are packages that I think Chris Richard, the defensive coordinator, will create for him and find ways to get them all on the field, because as I've watched Frank, I've watched him grow and his pass rush is getting better, but certainly he has a lot to learn in terms of the game, how to rush, how to counter, when to move, when to go, those sort of things. But for Michael Bennett and Cliff Averill, those guys should be great teachers and ensuring that his progress comes along real well. He should be quite productive.
Well, the 12s are also excited switching to offense with all the offensive weapons that the team's implementing for this season. How are the other teams going to go up against that, the other team's defense?
That's going to be the challenge. I think that remains to be seen, you know, and it also remains to be seen how many times our offense decides to pick the ball up and throw it. Now, this has been the best offense in football the last 3 years at rushing the football. Marshawn Lynch has led the league over the last 3 years of rushing touchdowns. So if they continue to live with the success and how they got to where they are, they'll continue to run the ball. But don't be surprised if they pick it up and throw it quite a bit more this year.
The 12s like your opinion, so they're wondering what first or second team or player hasn't been impressing you most this training camp?
Well, I'd say Tyler Lockett, and the reason Tyler Lockett has been impressive because he's always one of the first guys out here when the specialists come and he's working on fielding kicks and returning punts. Now that's one of the things on the special team side of the ball that the Seahawks lacked last year, a return specialist who can threaten coverage and go the distance. They kind of lost that when Leon Washington left. He was a great return specialist in his time, but Tyler Lockett should be able to provide those extra yardage, those hidden yardage too, that could flip the field and give the offense pretty good field position.
He's a hard worker, always putting in extra time out here on the field. Thank you, Jordan, and thank you 12s for sending in your questions, and keep sending them in using hashtag Seahawks Camp. All right,
thank you. Let's do
Tony.
Practice has started. I mean, the guys have broken down and now start to see some of the individual drills and things of that sort, and guys start to perfect their skill. You see the defensive linemen going through their pass rush and rip moves. The secondary is on the back end working on their steps and coverage assignments and that sort of thing. But keep the hashtag coming, hashtag Seahawks, keep the questions coming at Jordan Babineau. We'll do our best to ensure that we get your question on camera and get your question answered.
How'd you do out there? 3 for 3?
Yeah, Tony, I think we're batting 1,000 right now.
Good,
3 for 3,
right.
not too hard.
Can't ask for more than that. We're looking at another hands drill by the defense, Brandon Mebane right there. I love this drill. There's another one. There's another one that'd be fun to do. I mean, fun if that's all you're doing, but in the context of a practice, it's a tough one. But
and Tony, these are basic principles. The way you simplify your keys being a football player is simple. It's eyes, hands, feet, leverage. Now, how that relates to your position group specific and your assignment and what you have to do is all within the call and scheme. But see, as the defensive linemen, they're working their hands. They're working their hands. If you take a look at the defensive backs, they're working their feet. You take a look at the linebackers, they're working their hands. They're working their hands. These are the things that you'll always see continued preached daily throughout defensive. It's just plain defensive concepts, defensive principles. Eyes, hands, feet, leverage.
And they're all connected, obviously. All connected.
I see you studied anatomy too, Tony.
Yes, I have. You know that old song, the leg bones connected to the hip bone? That goes way back to the 40s. But anyway, there you go.
That's the defensive backs doing tackling drills. Now, Tony, this is one of the things that you don't see a lot of is tackling drills, because at some point, because you're so limited in what you have to do, see, there's a great illustration of leverage. If you're strong to the outside, be strong to the outside. But Tony, going back, it's one of the things that you don't see quite often throughout the season are tackling drills, and this has been one of the best tackling football teams in the NFL over the last 3 years. And in fact, it's been a top defense in the last 3 years, and it's the reason that they do it is because they're so aggressive, they're so determined to get after the football, and it's never just one guy making the tackle.
Right.
You have to get multiple hats to the football, and that usually leads to good things.
Well, you have not only that, but then you have multiple hats to the football. Then you got the punch drill. You're trying to get that ball out, constantly trying to get it out. You know, there are some critics over the past recent years of NFL tackling skills, that guys don't know how to tackle. I mean, that's a very general statement, but not enough guys know how to tackle correctly. And that's one of the reasons Coach works on it as much as he does.
There's so many different ways to teach tackling. As you see Chris Richard, the defensive coordinator, spend his time with the defensive backs, you know, talking to the young guys and how to break down and get proper leverage and weight balance on the tackle. That was a great tackle right there. As he say, strong to his form side. You hit, you wrap up, you grab cloth, and drive your feet.
Obviously, the physical skills need to be there, but then there's that transition that you make as an NFL player coming out of college, and that you make that transition with 3 or 4 or 5 other guys trying to make the same transition and trying to make that, trying to get the starting spot where you are. So there's that outside pressure of guys competing against you, and yet that in itself can make you better.
There's Russell Wilson in the offensive side of the ball going through some of their route progression. And Jimmy Graham connecting once again, getting upfield. A lot of familiarity between those two over the course of the last few months.
Hey, we got a viewer from Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Military base in North Carolina checking in today. Welcome. And this, of course, Military Day at Training Camp, sponsored by USAA. We appreciate all that the military does, has done, continues to do for all of us.
Tony, here's a question for you, and I guess fans should really probably be excited about this. Is their quarterback, Russell Wilson. When you take a look at Russell Wilson now going into his 4th season, what do you think some of the things that he's probably coming into the offseason thinking that he needs to improve on the most? If I were to ask, you know, and you know, just looking and analyzing what he's done, his course of work over the last 3 years, to me, I think what he's done well is protected the football. I mean, last year he had his best season in terms of protecting the football by interceptions. But I'd like to see a little bit more initial decision. Where he's going with the foul. I'd like to see him have that decision a little bit sooner. And then many times, if his first read is not there, he can get caught up holding the ball quite a bit, and then it turns to a little backyard football. But if I were to say some of the things in critiquing Russell Wilson's game, that would probably be number 1. But that's a good sign too, because that's also why he's so creative in extending plays.
Well, that's true. But I think he'd be the first to admit that that's one of the things he's working on too. You know, he's not a classic pocket passer, as you know, and yet I'm sure he wants to get better at that if that opportunity presents itself. You know, the receivers, the blockers, they're used to his extension of plays. They're used to having to kind of extend the plays themselves, and it would be a luxury if they didn't always have to do that. But when they do it and it works, it's a pretty cool thing to watch.
Yeah, and I think what you don't get to see or even understand, if you know, for the average fan, is that this is actually practice. The Seahawks practice a scramble drill. They practice a plaster coverage drill. And usually you tend to see levels. You tend to see someone right in front of them, someone at the intermediate level, which is about 10 or 15 yards, but there's always someone for the deep shot. And if there's a way for an easy touchdown. It's the extension of Russell Wilson's plays and a coverage blown on the opposite end and a deep threat in the back end wide open for the touchdown.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a very big challenge for defenses, no matter how good they are, to cover this offense this year. I think that I said this at the beginning of last year and it didn't quite work out. I thought the Seahawks offense was 5 to 10 points better going into last season. Obviously, the Percy trade and all that changed things up a little. I think with Jimmy Graham coming in, with Luke Wilson being where he is now, with a healthy backfield and a line, this could be a more productive offense than it's ever been before, or at least in recent years.
Tony, there's so many ways that you can attack a defense now when you add Jimmy Graham to your arsenal. Luke Wilson has done an outstanding job last year. I believe he had 3 touchdowns and 2 100-yard games at the tight end position. Now that kick and a flat-out run now going into his 2nd year. I think that package right there is probably what we'll be able to see, because not only can you pass the ball and create different formations with Jimmy Graham by splitting him out wide, maybe lining him inside the core, but you can also run the ball because it's a heavy set with 2 bigger guys, 2 tight ends, and still be able to run the ball. So how defenses match up against that, you could see potentially a nickel coverage against this formation simply because of the success and oftentimes they run this formation.
No, I think, yeah, that's a good point. And yeah, it could be a test out there for defenses facing this offense this year. By the way, it just brings back, you mentioned a couple of touchdowns that Luke had last year. 1 or 2 came to mind late in the season when he caught a ball, and I didn't realize that he was as fast as he is.
Oh, when he outran the defenders from Arizona?
Yeah, and that, I mean, he knew how fast he was, but I don't know if anybody else in the stadium knew until that was over.
Fastest time coming out of the combine last year, Tony, the kick and flat-out run. And he, you know what? I spent some time with him this offseason. He can eat. I walked into one of the local restaurants and I saw Luke. I walked up on him and he had a dinosaur leg on his plate with a bone sticking out.
That's good.
And the kid can eat. I mean,
yeah, you know, I'll tell you, it's funny because he's got that hair flowing out of the helmet, and I suppose if he cut that off, it would slow him down a heck of a lot, so he's not going to do that. We're looking at the defensive line right now. Defensive line drills. Coach Travis Jones working with those guys. Brandon Mebane, who anchored that line until he got injured last year, back in great shape this year.
Yeah, he looks good, Tony. Looks like he lost a few pounds too as well.
There's Pee Wee right there, Dwayne Board, who's back coaching the Seahawks again. He was with Mike Holmgren for several years. And there you see one of
that's that quick inside pass rush move for the interior defensive lineman, Tony. And when you have an interior defensive lineman that's as productive as Brandon Mebane, who has been the past 4 or 5 years, he's been so dominant that he demands a double team. And then he's also quick enough to get up the field and create pressure in the quarterback's face. Now, that's the worst thing that can happen for a quarterback if he can't step into his throws, but usually for the defense, they benefit.
Good point. Good point. Jordan Babineau with us. Tony Ventrella, Jordan Babineau, Day 10, Seahawks Training Camp. Your questions have flowed nicely today, you guys. We appreciate it. I know that Taylor's going to step in front of the camera in a second with Big Play Babs and do our questions coming in as we get ready to wrap up this hour and this day of our live stream.
So I think they'll be doing a little red zone today too. It's going to be exciting to see who's the target in the red zone. This is competition Wednesday on a Tuesday, Taylor. So
everyone thinks it's going to be Jimmy Graham, but who knows?
Jimmy Graham. I'm telling you. Well, we'll see.
Well, we had one fan tweet in from Taiwan, which is interesting.
Wow.
Said,
all right.
It makes it worth it to stay up till 2 a.m. in Taiwan when they can watch Seahawks camp.
And you know what? And I think all the 12 throughout the organization from Taiwan can feel that support. I tell you, I think the Seahawks has probably had the biggest wave of momentum in terms of fans and support that they've received over the last 3 years. But much of it, of course, Taylor, is all a tribute to the work that these guys put in and the success that they have on the field.
Unrelated to training camp, the fans are wondering, who do you think the toughest opponent is on the Seahawks schedule this season?
Wow, a lot of tough opponents. The NFC West in itself, when I take a look at the NFC West, I think that Arizona will be a better ball club this year, especially if they're able to keep their quarterback healthy. We know that this team got off to a great start last season, but had some injuries at the quarterback position that kind of left the defenses handicapped quite a bit and just flat out tired toward the end of the season. I also think that with the move that the Rams have done, you know, the addition of Nick Foles, I think Jeff Fisher now at his disposal has a quarterback who he can trust and doing some great things and getting that ball club back on track. And remember that the Seahawks had some trouble going into the Dome last year and split during the season 1-1 with the Rams. Many tough opponents. They play the AFC North, and of course that's always a strong division. Pittsburgh, Baltimore, Cincinnati, those teams really play well. But Pittsburgh has to travel here. And I think more than any game on the season, that's the one I have highlighted, is that the Steelers have to come to CenturyLink to face the Seahawks.
It's always tough to play in CenturyLink.
Well, Taylor, for obvious reasons, I think the fans know why there's still a little bitterness towards Steelers Nation. And you know what? It'll always be a bitterness towards Steelers Nation.
Hey, that's why the Seahawks are out here training hard. We're going to have a great season, I have no doubt.
Yeah, I'm certainly looking forward to it. I won't go through my early picks just yet. I'll still wait to go through the schedule and determine if I think the team will win 11 or 12 games this season. But I do think that they'll be somewhere near the hunt again and pushing to make another strong playoff run toward the end of the year. One
more question from the 12s. They're wondering who has been most impressive at the defensive back position.
Cisse, you know, the trade came over. You know what I really like about him, and I haven't watched him in individual drill, but as you would expect, the competition is there. He had an interception in practice the other day, and it was great to see. I think he went up against Jimmy Graham and went up to get the ball. So with so many additions and so many questions and opportunities for guys to step in at the nickel position or be able to fill in with some of the passing packages on the defensive side of the ball, I think he'd be one of the guys that you'd like to see on the back end.
Thank you, Jordan. And I just noticed we're both rocking the aviators today.
Yeah,
nice
see? Now that's style.
That's style. Thank you, 12s. We had a lot of great questions sent in today, so keep them coming. We'll be back tomorrow. Back to you, Tony.
All right. Well, I guess we're saying goodbye, Tony. Come on in here.
All right, Taylor.
They've been rapping.
Did we set a record for questions today?
Well, what did we get? 5?
Yeah.
5, but you know what? We got one from Taiwan, so that was, you know, that right there in itself just kind of surmounted everything. It took it to a whole new level that the Seahawks have fans in Taiwan.
All right, super. Thank you for doing that. Hey, one more time, Military Day, sponsored by USAA. Thank you so much, Jordan Bobineau, Tony Ventella, Taylor. Thank you, Justin, Anita upstairs controlling everything. Brian Pan, our whole crew out there. We'll see you tomorrow on Seahawks.com.
Know your role.